All right. Good morning, everyone. From here in Nigeria, my name is Oluwatosin Anishere. Okay, I actually, I studied from University of Ibadan. I studied computer science, and currently I'm working with a Microsoft partner, that's Rugby Business Solutions, as a cloud infrastructure and Microsoft security consultant. I specialize in Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365. I'm also a volunteer for community service. I'm an active member of the Textilers, where I mentor aspiring women in tech, as well as I'm one of the leaders in the Nigeria Azure community. I'm so excited to be a part of this program that is put together by Lasso CBT. And I really want to take this moment to say thank you to these organizers for giving me the platform to speak. So I think I'm being allocated 30 minutes and I'll be speaking on Azure and the command line tool. Okay, so before I talk about Azure, let's go back. Let's go far back as trying to understand what is a data center. Okay, I know you might not be able to respond back to me. I would have loved to ask that how many of us, have seen a data center before or has been to a data center before. Now, this data center, just like the picture you're seeing on the screen, is actually a physical facility that organizations usually use to house their critical applications as well as data. Now, from a peek at this picture, you would see that the facility consists of racks. What you have here, they're just a couple of racks. We have blades. We refer to blades as physical servers. Okay. We have the PDU, like the power distribution unit. We have the UPS, I'm sure you know what that is, the uninterrupted power supply. We have network devices, we have storage, we have system controllers, we have chillers, those are the cooling system. We have generators, we have DG, that's actually a console. We have the physical security, so much more. All of these things what makes up the physical data center. So their infrastructure, which are based on compute of networks as well as storage resources. Now, that way, it enables the delivery of shared application and data. Now, this exactly is what we refer to as on-premises. I'm sure most of us must have heard that word before. Now, trust me, when it comes to on-premises, that's a lot of capital expenditure, which we refer to as CAPEX. Now, you, or should I say organization, will be buying all those physical hardware components that I mentioned, and they have to buy them in advance because they own it to set up their infrastructure. So there's a lot of upfront spending of money on all this physical hardware, or should I say equipment. So it's that was the traditional on-premises that we have. But then there's a shift. And for this shift, the shift takes us to the modern data center. Okay, this is totally, or should I say, quite different from what it used to be back then. Now, this shift has taken us from the traditional on-premises that I stated to us, that has all of these different components and all. It has taken us from that physical services to more of virtual networks. These virtual networks that supports application and as well as workload across, pools of physical infrastructure into a multi-cloud. So what I mean to say is that this data now exists in, it exists across multiple data centers, the edge, the cloud, whether you want to call it private cloud or public cloud, such that we say, when we now say, okay, we're hosting our application on the cloud, what we are simply saying is that we are using the data center resources from cloud providers. And we have various cloud providers. We have the likes of Microsoft, they are cloud providers. We have the likes of Amazon, we have Google, we have IBM, Salesforce. All of these people I mentioned, they're actually cloud providers. So I'm sure you can now take a guess that our shift is actually from the traditional on-premises to cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? Obviously, cloud computing is not this, cloud, the literal meaning that we see, on the sky. That's not cloud computing. Rather, cloud computing, I would explain it to say it's it's a technology basically that provides us access to various computer resources via internet. Let me cite a scenario that I believe we can all relate with. Back then, many years back, when you get a phone, I'm sure most time you go for phones based on their specification. You would usually look out for space, the RAM, and in order to even have more storage capability, some of us go out there to get a memory card, such that we can slot that in our mobile phone to have like a form of extended memory. That way we are able to take more pictures, we're able to have more videos, more images. We just have that as an extension. And we have our contacts, that's on our mobile phone, either stored on the phone or somehow stored in your SIM card, depending on how you want to go about the storage. Now, in a case that phone is missing, or should I say stolen, I'm sure you and I know, especially in this part of the country where we had that's like a serious problem, because you have to worry about my contacts. You have to worry about, oh, how do I get back all of these things from my phone? And I remember I usually write contact numbers in a diary back then, such that if anything happens, somehow I still have all of this contact to refer to. But you would agree with me that now that's no longer the case. It's not a problem for us because we now have cloud computing. We now have a situation where you get your phone, you have all of your images, all of your contacts, everything is stored in the cloud. So you don't get to worry about, oh, I need to purchase a memory card. Oh, I need extra space. No, you don't worry about those things anymore. And even if your phone gets stolen, yeah, I know, humanly speaking, you'll be bothered like, oh, I just lost the phone, especially if it's a big phone. But besides that, you are rest assured that all your applications, all your data, your contacts, and all of those things, you can easily get them back because they are now stored on the cloud. So that's like the comforting, thing we can relate with now. And that I just described is basically cloud computing. Now, this cloud computing, some refer to it as, okay, this is just someone else's data center. The way organizations will build their own data center. Now, this is someone else's own, and I'm trying to, use it. For me, I believe, just personally, in my opinion, I believe it is more than just a data center. That is, and the reason why I said that is because the cloud computing provides you have provisioning of services, application on demand over the internet. The things like servers, things like application, things like data and other, resources, as a service, you could get that. So to a user, this will entail, abstract services. And what do I mean by that? You no longer have to get this physical hardware to set up your infrastructure. You no longer have to think of, spending money upfront. Remember, I talked about the capital expenditure. you don't have to worry about that. So what you just do is you quickly provision your computing resources by using this minimal management. And that's why personally, I just believe it's beyond, it's more than just saying, okay, we have a data center. So cloud computing uses virtualization, the commodity hardware, automated processes. All of this in a way is just to provide us users the self-service user experience, that we would get in a more cheaper way. Now, like what you can see here on the screen is just giving us an overview of the cloud computing. Now, you would notice that these different services are, grouped under infrastructure, platform, and application. And that's, if you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit on these cloud service offerings. We have something called infrastructure as a service, and this infrastructure as a service is just gives IT, that idea whereby they can rent services like the servers. Under compute, you have the servers, you have the virtual machines. You can get storage, you can have your network and operating system from the cloud provider, and that's what the infrastructure as a service gives to you. Mainly is this IT admins or the system admins that utilize it more. Okay, and if you take a look at the upper part, we have platform. Okay, for this platform here, it's it gives you room for building, for you to build, for you to do tests, for you to deploy things around software application, without having to worry about infrastructure. That's the platform as a service. And mainly it's targeted towards developers. So developers don't have to worry about the storage. They don't have to, worry about the services. They are the one that utilizes more. You can see the object storage, the identity, runtime queue, and databases. That is a platform as a service offering. Now, the next one, which is at the upper part, basically we refer to as SaaS offering, which is the software as a service. And this one is just you have users that get to connect and use cloud-based apps. So, for instance, our Office 365 is a perfect that's a Microsoft 365 is a perfect example of software as a service, and it's usually targeted towards end users who are frequent users of these maybe Dynamics as well as Microsoft 365. So that's just an overview. The idea of this is that rather than building or setting up your own infrastructure, you are leveraging on cloud providers to be able to utilize their own services. And of course, this is actually consumption based. And what do I mean? We understand what cloud computing is, from that short description. But the consumption based now, cloud providers like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Google, IBM, think of them. They all operate on a consumption based model. And what that means is the end users only pay for what they use. Okay, they are only being built for the services they use, unlike the traditional on-premises where haven't purchased your storage, haven't purchased, all those components that you need to set up your database. Sometimes you get to underutilize these services, and sometimes you may want more. Okay, but with the cloud computing services, we get, so much more from this. I'm going somewhere because I know I'm actually supposed to talk about Azure. So I'm taking it back such that we can drive, to the point of talking about this Azure. So still on this consumption base, there's no need for upfront. There's no need for trying to purchase or even manage any costly infrastructure that you will not, maybe you might not even eventually utilize. You just find out that yes, you purchased it, but you're underutilizing it and all. Imagine buying, especially, I'm sure some of we students can relate. Imagine you buying iPhone 12 for maybe your parents there is about, depending on who your parent is anyway. But what I'm just trying to say is that a parent will underutilize, those services. But yes, they have it and they are not, but utilizing everything, they would probably, underutilize, the function of the iPhone. So it's the same thing I'm trying to explain here. So whenever you subscribe to these cloud services, what you're basically doing is you're doing more of operational expenditure, meaning you are actually paying, you're spending on that product and services that you needed. Okay, you're doing, it gives us this pay as you go model, and trust me, it's way cheaper than the capital expenditure, which means setting up your data center and all. So of course, that way your Microsoft provider, I'm sorry, the cloud providers like Microsoft will be the one to manage this data center. They manage the hardware, they manage, the infrastructure and resources. What we as users get to do is we access these resources either free. Sometimes it can be free, and sometimes you have to pay. And that's why I refer to it as consumption-based model. Okay, so now let's talk about Azure itself. Remember, I started from the on-premises aspect, talking about the data center, letting us understand the shift to cloud computing, and right now, singling out Microsoft as a cloud service provider, I want to now dwell more on Azure. All right, so Azure basically is a public cloud computing platform, and it has so many offerings. So it's a platform with solution that offers us various services like the EAS, PaaS, and SaaS that I actually talked about. Now, Azure is so huge that it offers over 200 products and services, and that is available over the internet. That's one big thing about Azure. So let me see if I can bring up page 1 minute. I would like to show us, some of these. So these are all Azure's product and services, over 200, of them thereabout. Although they're in category, whether you have AI and ML, analytics, blockchain, compute, containers, we have them like that. We have all of these products and services that Microsoft offer. And that was why I mentioned that it is huge. Okay. Now, one thing I would also like us to know is that when it comes to Azure, it's actually beyond this compute and network services. You equally have other services like identity, the governance policy, this security and compliance, and so much more, just like I just showed us, on the Microsoft slide. Now, remember that the modern data center, remember the modern data center I talked about. So in essence, Azure has its own data center as well. And these data center are in different regions. And when I say region, basically I'm referring to collections of data centers. That's what we call region. And this region can be categorized based as we have America region, we have the Europe region, we have the Asia Pacific region, we have the Middle East, and we have Africa. So those are the different regions that we have. And of course, Azure offers more global region than any cloud service provider. You can quote me. And that's one thing I know. They have over 60 regions that are being represented in over 140 countries. And trust me, that is huge, coming from Microsoft. And I can also show us that as well from the Microsoft site, for us to see the global infrastructure. So here are just the various regions where Microsoft has its data center. So, and all of this data center, you can see in terms of location and all, I can click on, all of these things. You can see them, right here. You can move this mouse. Let's come to Africa. We have the Chile Central, we have the South Brazil, we have tons of all these other services. Let's move this globe and just try to explore. We have the West Europe, we have the UK South, tons of them. When I get to the portal, I would make reference to this and I will show us more of this region. So these are all the, what's it called, Azure regions that we have. And each region, just like I have clicked and you're seeing the little description, consists of more than one data center as well as availability zone. And what does that mean? It means it's made up of one or more data center that is equipped, with their independent cooling unit and networking, and this just helps us to get all those services that we need, and they keep running, in one part. And it's so great that even if for the availability zone, even if a part is not available, you have other parts that are running for you in the availability zone. Now, let's now assume that yes, we have subscribed to these Azure services. For instance, we have purchased different product and services. We have deployed a VM. We have deployed app service. All these other offerings that we have within Azure. Let's assume we've done all that. Now, the next question that may probably come to mind is, how do I manage these resources? Okay, so managing these resources now takes us to what we call the management tools. Okay. I think this slide is just giving us a basic overview of this offering in terms of on-premises, the infrastructure, platform, and software as a service. I know I've mentioned that, but this just gives us a clear view. Now, remember when I said the on-premises, you get to, the capital expenditure where you take it. And in terms of management, you as maybe an organization and whole, you get to manage all of these services, the entire infrastructure, from the networking to storage to servers, virtualization, right up to application. You get to manage it all. Your organization gets to manage it. Now, after you have subscribed to Azure services and you have the likes of Microsoft as your cloud service provider, so depending on the service offerings that you want, whether you want the ES, which is the infrastructure as a service, or you want the PaaS, which is the platform as a service, or you want the SaaS, which is the software as a service. Now, this ES, remember what I told us, that basically the system admins use it more. So in terms of management, you have shared responsibility. And what do I mean? It means Microsoft gets to manage some parts, and you as an organization gets to manage, other things. So the networking, the storage, the servers, the virtualization, you do not bother your head about that because Microsoft will manage it. You don't have to buy anything. Of course, you have subscribed to these Azure services. And but from the OS, you determine the OS you want to use, the middleware, the runtime, down to application. You as an organization or as a user will be the one to determine that. And yes, you get to manage that. Okay, so for PaaS, which is the platform as a service, now Microsoft is doing more work. Remember, I said it's targeted towards developers, programmers. You can do your dev and test, within this environment. That's where you have the likes of app services. You have the likes of container instance and all. So the only thing you are managing is your data that you're bringing in, maybe your code that you're bringing into play, and the application that you have built afterwards. You get to manage that. Okay. And if you take a look at software as a service, everything, basically from start to finish of networking up to application is being totally managed by Microsoft. And that was why I said is being targeted by end users, consumers. If I'm going to give us an idea of this, the infrastructure platform and all, I can bring you to the pizza model. Okay, now imagine the on-premises as a pizza model where you have to, get all your ingredients. You have to get, all the recipe. You get to, prepare all these things from start to finish. You will be the one to buy your flour and all those ingredients that you need to make your pizza, including the toppings and cheese and everything that you need. That's like an idea of infrastructure as a service. I'm sorry, on premises. Now the infrastructure as a service, still looking at the pizza model. What you do is you get all of these ingredients, probably they're ready made. I'm sure those of us in Nigeria, we have idea of small chops. These small chops, you don't do it from the beginning. You go to the store, you get, this small chops flour, and all you have to do is get home and fry it or, bake it, however you want to do with that. So similarly, in the pizza model, you have this thing, pre-ready made. So what you are concerned about is, okay, I have this, I am the one that will take care of my gas cooker, or determine if I needed to use a gas cooker or an electric cooker. I'll be the one to set my tables to say, okay, I need to use this table and all of those things in the pizza model. So for platform as a service, so platform as a service here, you have it delivered to you. The likes of when you call Domino's, or you call Debonairs, or you call Dodo Pizza, you know a lot of them. You make your order and they bring it to you. Now, once they deliver you this pizza, you will be the one to set your table. No one is going to do that for you. So you're managing that aspect of setting your table and determining, okay, I want to enjoy my pizza with this particular drink or no. So that's like the idea of the platform as a service. And of course, software as a service, everything is being done for you. What you just have to do is go out there to any of those eatery and dine in. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm setting the table. You don't have to worry about, oh, I'm doing this. You get served and you enjoy your pizza with your desired meal. So that's the idea of this. And you will notice from this slide that there's a shared responsibility between the Microsoft provider, which is um, and you, or should I say organization, okay, in terms of management. Now let's now focus on the management tools, because it's the tools that we get to use in managing all our resources, whether we want to deploy them or we want to make changes, all those various things. It's the management tool that help us. So with Azure has its management tool, and you can even refer to them as management and governance tool. However you want to put it, the essence is it just helps the system admins in the organization, or maybe developers, to be able to keep their resources secure, to be able to manage their resources. They're able to, create, delete, and do all of these things in the cloud. So we have the likes of Azure CLI. Okay, just like what we have on the screen. And this Azure CLI, we refer to it as Azure Command Line Interface. Okay, we're still going to take a look about that more. Azure Command Line Interface, it's actually a convenient way for us to be able to manage updates. You're able to create all of these resources I talked about in the Microsoft Azure platform. So of course, with the Azure CLI, you're able to use it to get any Azure services that you have in mind that you want. So it will allow you to do your work easily. Okay, now one interesting thing about this Azure CLI is that it allows you to work with popular programming language. and in your environment. So that's one interesting thing. And of course, you can get to install it on different operating systems. So it doesn't matter if you're using Windows or you're using Mac OS or you're using a Linux environment, it doesn't matter. And in a situation where you want to leverage on the Cloud Shell, of course, you can also enjoy the use of this Azure CLI. Okay, so we also have PowerShell, just like we're talking on the screen. I know it's almost time based on the time that has been allocated to me, but please permit me to, talk about these tools. Now, for PowerShell, PowerShell is a great tool. We have the Azure PowerShell and we have the Windows PowerShell. So the Azure PowerShell is just an extension of our Windows PowerShell. It has different modules that you have to install, and it uses commandlets. It has this principle of the commandlets are usually in the structure of a verb noun. Okay, there's always like get this, convert this. So there's usually this structure of a verb noun, and you can actually automate scripts using PowerShell. So PowerShell is actually is bigger than the normal command prompt that we used to know. It has IntelliSense, whereby it does syntax highlighting. Maybe you're typing a particular command line. It does the syntax highlighting and auto completion, and that's why it has that great feature of IntelliSense. So yes, that's what this PowerShell is. And we have the Azure Portal. You cannot miss it with the Azure Portal. I'm sure for some of us that have had opportunity to use maybe the free, or we have worked with, Azure, there's no way you wouldn't come about the Azure Portal. Okay, the portal is basically a web console, and it provides us with this graphic user interface. Let me not talk too much. Let me see if I can bring up my environment to show you. So this is my portal. And how do I get here? All I have to do is portal.azure.com. So with that, I will be able to navigate to my Azure portal. So I can sign in, using this, depending on the different accounts that I have. And on the Azure portal, whenever you sign in, you get to the landing page, which is your home page. Your home page is usually your landing page. If you have a dashboard, that is being configured, of course, it can get you to your dashboard, where you have probably all the resources that you've purchased or that you have being structured and arranged in a way you want personally. So this is the Azure portal, and we can take a look at all the resources that we have. Okay, so basically these are my own personal resources that I have in here. If I go ahead to click all services, then I can have a look at all the services that Azure is offering me that I can leverage on, starting from the, compute, networking, storage, web, mobile, and tons of them. And that's why I said the Microsoft offer over 200, products and services. So this is a portal, and you would observe that this portal is actually a graphic user interface. That's the common way you get to interact with cloud, mostly through your portal. Okay, PowerShell, yes. So even within the portal, you can have, your Cloud Shell within your portal in here. Okay, so if I decide to, okay, let's say I restart this, have it up before. So, but what I would like to bring out here for this Cloud Shell is you can either have the batch or you can have the PowerShell. And you may be wondering, what's the difference between this batch and PowerShell? I'll start with PowerShell. Now, this PowerShell, you can use it with the Windows and all, but for Batch, it's you know quite different. It gives us this. It accepts the input and output in form of text structures. Unlike what I talked about PowerShell, that gives us the structure of a verb now and it uses commandlet. But with Batch, you have it looks like a text. Okay, I can even quickly demonstrate one by creating, let's say, a resource group. For instance, you would observe that this resource group, it's going to be like a text base. It's that simple, so I could go with, let me try to create one here. I'm sorry, I may have to type. I just want to show us what it looks like when I said it's text-based. So I can go ahead to say AZ, that's the Azure group, create. So it looking like a text, like I'm giving it instruction name. Then I can give it my name. Oh, Lasso CBT resource group. Let's call it that. Okay, Lasso CBT resource group. And I can decide, okay, where do I want this particular resource group to be located? So I can go ahead and say, okay, I want to locate it in the East US. You remember what I talked about, regions and all. So I can decide, okay, I want it in the East US and I run. Okay, so basically, all right, so I think I have an error here. I must have missed out something. Let me do that again. Easy group, please permit me easy group. Eight hyphen name space my ASU resource group space hyphen location. Okay, so I have that, created. Oh, my group is misspelled. Now, this is an interesting thing when it comes to the text. It's while you are using this text, you have to be careful, and I'm sure you can see that from my screen. And it's so interesting and easy to use because it will always point you to where the error is. And I'm glad this kind of error is showing up because you can see from my screen, but it's basically letting us understand that from my text like a command for this cloud share, I have misspelled my group. Okay, so which means I have to, let me see if I can take that away to spell it properly, and then I run it again. Okay, so great, I have this succeeded, as you can see on the screen. Okay, and I can decide, okay, yes, I've created this thing. Let it list out all the resource group that I have in place, for instance. So I can go as simple as say, okay, still Azure, that's the AZ group. Now we have to be careful of the spellings, because they're sensitive. List space hyphen then outputs table. Now, basically what I am asking is that let it list out all the resource groups I have. Now, I'm going to do something quickly for a comparison. Now, you would notice the names of all these resource group, the location, and you see it's letting me know is succeeded. So let's come here. This is my portal. Let me use the GUI now, which is the graphic user interface, and I will go to resource groups, for instance. Now, please take notes. You can see all the resource groups I have here is same that is being outputted, that is being output for me. And this is as simple as, you could use the what's it called? The Azure Cloud Shell. I'm sorry, I may not be able to do more because of time. I'm being timed. Okay, so that's those are the command management tools, that we have. The CLI, PowerShell, the portal, and Cloud Shell. And that would be the end of this short present. I wish I had more time. I don't mind. I was actually enjoying myself being here. I would have loved to do more, do more things for us, but it's okay. I don't know if we have questions and answer. Probably I can go ahead to thank you very much. So I'll start from the last person and I'll take it down that way. Okay, so I'm glad you have said the organization will get across. This slide might not be something handy because if you notice, there are more of pictures and no text. So this might not really do justice to the need of that. However, I'm sure I can get across to our organizer, and that way they can disseminate information where you can, have more deep dives and learn more, about Azure. Now to question 2, which is the second person. The person was talking about the CAPEX and OPEX scenario. If you remember, in summary, I said the capital expenditure has to do with, spending upfront on your physical infrastructure, and the operational expenditure has to do with spending money on services, especially the ones that you use. Now, if I get your question clearly, you wanted to know at what instance can you have the capital expenditure. So you could have that in a situation where an organization, or maybe your organization, wants to have their own on-premises, or they want to have their own private cloud. Okay, in a situation whereby organization wants to have their own private cloud, yes, now this, what they have to do is they have to set up data center, right? And of course the data center does not necessarily have to be in the same premises where the organization building is. It can be in a different place. Main one is a perfect example, of that. You could have your data farm or data center in a much different place. But the idea of cloud, the private cloud, is that these resources that you have on them would be accessible over the internet, and that's what makes a cloud. The fact that you are able to access those resources over the internet. Now, what makes it more of, the private cloud is the fact that the organizations are the one creating their own environment. They are creating their own data center. They are responsible for the operation of service they provide, and they do not, please note, they do not make any of these services available to people outside the organization. And that is what make it private cloud. So in a situation where organization wants to own and have their own private cloud, yes, they would consider capital expenditure because they have to set this thing up in place. Okay, that's for that. Unlike the public cloud, remember when I was describing Azure to us, I said Azure is a public cloud platform. And the reason why I said that is public cloud are usually owned by cloud service providers, or if you like, you can call them hosting providers. Okay, they are the ones that provide these services to you, where you could get to use them, and you obviously get to access them via the internet. Again, if you are not accessing resources via the internet, then it's not cloud. Probably you're just trying to use a virtualization and all. I'm sorry, I don't want to go, digress from that question. And I hope I'm able to answer the second person's question. Now, to the first person, regarding how can you subscribe. Now, the beautiful thing here is that, of course, for organization, let me start with for organization, they have the Azure pricing, where you can get to see, okay, how much resources cost, such that you are able to plan in terms of cost management and all of that. Okay, am I clicking the right thing? I needed Azure pricing. Now, for individual user, you could go through virtual my maybe you may want to take note of that. my.visualstudio.com. Okay, now this here, you can actually go ahead to leverage on it. Now, for someone that just wants to do this for test, not for organization who is trying to purchase it for production environment. Maybe the way we are students and we want to have that for our test environment to familiarize ourselves with this platform and environment and all. This is a good way to go, the my.visualstudio.com, but you need a Microsoft account to be able to do that. Okay, so I already have my Microsoft account. So when I go through this Microsoft account that I have, again, you need to have a Microsoft account. Obviously, you would have, all of these services, and you can activate, Azure services where you get $150 every month. That's the free aspect. Now, for organizations, they can leverage based on maybe partners. Organization can leverage on partners to help them with the deployment and as well as the services in terms of payment. So they can leverage on partners. They could leverage on which is I would liken it to a fast track, for organizations. And I don't know if I am able to, answer your question as you would have wished in terms of how do you subscribe to this service.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. This was very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you for making impact.
Okay. Thank you very much, for joining the session.